were on the road, going up to Jerusalem, and Jesus was walking ahead of them. The disciples were astonished, but those who followed him were afraid. Taking the 12 aside again, he began to tell them the things that would happen to him. See, we are going up to Jerusalem. The Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and the scribes, and they will condemn him to death. Then they will hand him over to the Gentiles, and they will mock him, spit on him, flog him, and kill him. And he will rise after 3 days. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, approached him and said, "Teacher, we want you to do whatever we ask you." "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked them. They answered him, "Allow us to sit at your right hand and at your left in your glory." Jesus said to them, "You don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with?" "We are able," they told him. Jesus said to them, "You will drink the cup I drink, and you will be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. But to sit at my right or left is not mine to give. Instead, it is for those for whom it has been prepared." When the 12 disciples heard this, they began to be indignant with James and John. Jesus called them over and said to them, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those in high positions act as tyrants over them. But it is not so among you. On the contrary, whoever wants to become great among you will be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you will be a slave to all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." One of the traditions in my family growing up around Christmas, we always waited until after Thanksgiving to set up the Christmas tree, just like all good people should wait until after Thanksgiving. I'm just kidding. As I'm in my own adulthood now in our family, we're putting up the tree earlier and earlier because why not? But for many years, it was just me and my brother. My brother was 2 years younger than me. And so we would put up the tree together. We'd put up all the kind of the cheap ornaments, and you'd put up kind of the ornaments that were memorable ornaments from your year. But there was one thing at the end of the whole process that was of utmost importance. There was an antique angel tree topper. And I think this thing was like passed down from like Mary herself, the way that we treated the thing. It was delicate, it was fragile, it had to have been decades or generations old. But the thing was, there was only one angel tree topper. There were two of us, which meant that every Christmas, once we kind of became aware of this honor, we fought over who put the tree, or who put the angel on top of the tree. It got so bad after several years that my parents started writing it down and putting it in the box with the angel so that we had verifiable proof that last year you got to do it, and so this year your little brother is supposed to do it, even though I would say, "No, Mom, I did it last year." I'm sure that doesn't happen in your home at all. If you're a parent with kids, there's no fighting around Christmas, there's no squabbling or anything like that. But there's something about that position, right? Having that honor to say, there's only one, and I'm going to be that one. I'm going to be the one who's lifted up by my dad to put the little angel on top of the tree. There's something that happens in me as a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old that I think continues to happen as a 35 or 36-year-old in my heart, and probably happens in your heart as well whenever you have a position of significance. There's something that feels really good about it. Something that feels like, man, I'm special. I've got some privilege. I've got a position where people look up to me. Jesus is identifying this reality in all of our hearts, that as much as we love to think that we are kind, altruistic, loving kinds of people, when you're in that seat and there's only one seat and that seat is yours, that feels really good. And sometimes, if we're honest, we look at the world around us, we're fighting for a seat like that. We want to be right. We want to have that significance, that position in which I'm right and everyone else is wrong. I'm right and everyone else has to look up to me. It's the same dynamic that as much as you know that the fight that you're having with your spouse is not going well, if you can win, you feel good. Or if there's only one position in your job for a promotion, you will do all that you can to get that, even if it means playing a little dirty in the office gossip. It's the same dynamic that plays out in our hearts, in our communities, in our cultures, in our countries, that would lead us to even warfare and to other people, because it feels really good to be in that position of significance, of prominence, of importance. Jesus points out this reality. He says the world around you, and even by implication, us who belong to that world, love to do this. He says we love to lord over other people the high positions, the significance, the privilege that we have to lord it over people. And we get something really good out of that. But notice Jesus in his way offers something different. He says, not so among you. Now we know that it is so among them because James and John, they went to Jesus and they said, hey, can we have a position of power and prominence, right? So this isn't Jesus saying, hey, you all are perfect. He's saying the way that Jesus invites us into is different. In fact, you get this sense that James and John, I just love the question that they ask Jesus here. They come to him and they say, we want you to give us whatever we ask you. Right? That's the question. That's the thing that your kids say, right? They say, give me what is on my list, right? And Jesus, look at the grace of Jesus in verse 36. Well, what is it that you want? Right? He doesn't come down hard to them. He's inquisitive. He's open to them. But Jesus then teaches them about his way. And in doing so, in verse 45, he gives what really I think a lot of experts on this text would say is really Mark's central idea of the whole biography of Jesus. When he says this, for the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. This is Jesus in his own words, his own understanding of what it is that he's doing, why it is that he's here, why it is that he came at Christmas, and why it is that he continues to walk the earth. What is it that he is all about in this one sentence? The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So I just want to look at the phrases of Jesus' statement here, because this is his understanding of why Christmas happened, why it is that he walks the earth. First, he says, the Son of Man did not come to be served. What does it mean that he is the Son of Man? He uses this phrase a couple times. It means that he represents all of us, right? If you have a son, as I do, he represents something about you. He carries a resemblance to you. And in that day and age, he would also carry the authority and the representation of that person wherever you went. And so when Jesus calls himself the Son of Man, he's saying, I stand for all of us, that he is humankind in the flesh. But earlier in Mark's biography, if you were with us, the first thing that he said about Jesus is that Jesus is not just the Son of Man, he's also the Son of God. And so which is it? Mark's telling us that in Jesus' understanding, he understands himself to both be the Son of Man, meaning that he's completely 100% human. The baby born on Christmas is a full flesh and blood human. And yet he is also the Son of God, meaning that he perfectly is the embodiment, the representation of all that God is in the flesh. He is both 100% God and 100% human. This is what's happening in the miracle of the incarnation when Jesus comes into the world. But notice that Jesus says the Son of Man, referring to himself, did not come to be served. That word come has this idea of there's an intentionality to Jesus' presence in our world. Right? It's not like he discovered his purpose. It's not like all of a sudden he's like 16 and he's like, you know what I want to be? I want to be a carpenter, but eventually my career goal is to become the Messiah. That his purpose all along, that idea of come has an intentionality to it, an arrival to it, that he entered the world on purpose. Not an accident. That this calling that he has, this purpose that he has, is not something that someone else gave him or his parents imposed upon him. It's something that he understands about who he is in his essence and his purpose. He is here not on accident, not discovering who he is, but for a purpose. And what is that purpose? Look at what he says. He did not come to be served, but to serve. The fact that he says not to be served, he is the only one who can say this, right? Because it implies that he could be served, and he could rightfully be served, right? If he showed up into the world, he would deserve all of our praise. He would deserve all of our worship. He would deserve all of our awe and our reverence and our time and our money and our attention. He would deserve it all. That's right. If you come into the world and you say, don't worry about serving me, what you're actually saying is, I expect you to serve me. And I'm just being humble by saying, no, don't serve me, right? So it actually says you're pretty proud of yourself. But Jesus, and only Jesus, is the one who can say, I came into the world even though I deserve every praise, even though I deserve every worship. I'm instead choosing not to claim those things, but instead to serve, to give, to love, to offer service for others. Right? Only Jesus can say that and it be true of him. And it highlights just the radical humility. We all know the Christmas story, right? We read at the beginning, right? He didn't come into the halls of power or into a temple or a palace. He showed up in a manger, surrounded not by powerful politicians, but by shepherds and sheep. Right? In that story, we see from the very beginning, Jesus' plan and purpose has been not to be served, but to serve. And what does this service look like? Look at the last statement he gives us. And to give his life as a ransom for many. This is the act of service that he is ultimately talking about. The purpose of his life, to come into the world to serve, is not just only to do nice, good things and to heal people, to demonstrate a good life and acts of charity, but the ultimate expression of his service is to give his life as a ransom for many. That is why he has to be fully and completely human, so that he has a life that he can give. And it's also why he has to be fully and completely God, so that he can overcome the power of sin and death. But that word ransom is really important, right? Because a ransom, what is a ransom? It's something that you pay someone in order to get freedom, right? We probably talk more of ransomware in our world, right? Someone locks up your computer and they say, pay me $10 million and you can get everything, right? In their day and age, this wasn't about your iPhone or your laptop. This was about people. And so when Jesus says his plan and purpose is that he is going to give his life as a ransom, he's saying, I'm going to offer my life as the price, with the result being that you and many will be set free. That's the exchange that is at the heart of Jesus' purpose in coming. Now, why would he have to do that? Why would he have to do that? Why can't he just say, be free? You see, we all have this sense of justice, right? If someone wrongs you, what is it that you want? You want repayment. You want an apology. You want some sort of restitution or reparation for what happened. I want something that makes things right. And so in the same way, all of our sins and all of our selfishness, all the squabbling that Jesus identified, where we're trying to one-up one another and get this power and this significance, all of that God can't look the other way on. Right? Because we want to pass for our sin. We don't want to pass for someone else's sin, right? I would love God to look the other way on my selfishness and my pride, but I would love for him to really come down on that person that I hate at work. That's not justice. You see, in order for there to be true justice, there has to be a payment. There has to be some sort of restitution for the wrongs that have been perpetuated. For Jesus' disciples and for anyone who knew the Old Testament, there was a practice called the Day of Atonement. And on the Day of Atonement, one of the things that would happen is that there would actually be a goat that they would pick, and that goat would be known as the scapegoat. And what would happen is the priest would place his hand on that goat, and he would name all of the sins of the people, which you can imagine takes a little bit of while, right? A little bit of time to say all of the things that have been wronged. And what would happen then is they would then send that goat away into the wilderness as a ransom, as a picture of this is the cost of your sin. That this is what it takes to remove the sin from our world. It was God's way of giving them a picture. And so what they cannot understand here, but that they will understand in less than a week in Mark's telling, is that Jesus is that substitute come into the world. That what that prophecy or what those practices was looking forward to was that Jesus is actually the one who's going to be that substitute. That he is going to be the one who's going to pay the price for our sins, not just symbolically, but in reality. That his perfect life as a human is going to be the substitute for you and me in our imperfect life. And yet his perfect reality as Son of God means that he can pay the price for our sins and overcome the power of sin and death. That he is both God and man, and so he can stand in my place and die a real death on the cross, paying the price for my sin. But at the same time, as the Son of God, he can wipe my sins away. He can overcome sin and death. He can become a way for me to have life. This is why Jesus has to come in the way that he does. And this is why the purpose of Christmas is not just the cute story of the nativity, but it is really the beginning of a trajectory that Jesus is going to walk, that is going to set us free. Now, you may look around you and you say, okay, I'm not enslaved. I, of my own free will, chose to get up and come to church tonight, right? That's got to be some brownie points. That's got to be some good things. Like, what does this mean? Why do I need a ransom? See, Jesus points to this reality that there's something that is controlling our interior lives. There's something that is keeping us in this constant competition and criticism and back and forth. He points to that reality. We love to lord things over. There's something in us that wants to control us. That's what the Bible calls sin and selfishness. Jesus' death on the cross is his victory over that power. That he takes all of that on himself. That God lays all of that on his shoulders and empowers us and makes a way for us to be set free from that. Jesus, in his own words, would say, anyone who sins is a slave to sin. Meaning that there's this power at work within me that causes me to do things that even though I know I shouldn't do them, I do them. And this dynamic continues and continues all around us. And so what we need is not just Jesus as a good example. We need Jesus as a rescuer, Jesus as a redeemer, Jesus as a liberator. And that only comes as he takes on sin on himself. He's the substitute that we need, that we cannot get on our own. And so this freedom, how do you know that you're walking in that freedom? How do you know that that substitution, that ransom has been paid for you? One is that you have placed your faith and trust in Jesus. You're no longer looking at yourself and saying, okay, I need to become a better person. I need to climb the religious ladder or the social ladder or become a person that people look up to. Now you begin to see, actually, I cannot get there because I'm enslaved. And so you see in Jesus and what he offers for you on the cross, a way to be free. And so you turn from that sin and you trust in him. So all those who call on the name of the Lord will be saved. But you know that that is a reality for you when you begin to experience a new freedom in your life. Not a freedom in your life where you're just free to do whatever you want. It's negative freedom. But a freedom in your life where you are free from what Jesus identifies here, this striving for position, the striving for people to notice you, the striving for people to applaud you and praise you and say, look how good of a person they are. Because that striving is a sign that I'm still living by this old enslavement way. Instead, Jesus says all those who walk his way will not try to be served, but to serve. I was thinking about it this way. I don't know if you've ever experienced this reality. I have, where you are really excited to give someone a gift. Like you've really thought about it. You've put a lot of time and money into it, right? And then they open the gift, and it's everything that you imagine. They're overwhelmed by the gift. You love it. It's just thrilling. And then you open the gift that they got you, and it's disappointing, right? Have you ever experienced that reality? And what happens to you, right? Maybe it's like, I don't know, socks, and you got them like an iPod or something like that, right? What that shows you is that you actually were not giving freely. Right? You were not serving freely. There was a transactional kind of thing that was happening. Where I'm going to give you this, and you better give me something that's at least an equal dollar amount. We do that with gifts. We do that with charity. We do that with our generosity and our donations. We even do that with God. Say, look at all these good things I've done for you, God. Now come through for me here. What Jesus is inviting us into is a different way. A way that says, my freedom from sin and death has been bought by Jesus on the cross, which means that I have all that I need. On the cross, I see I don't have to strive. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to become someone that I'm not. I can be honest about my sin. But on the cross, I also see the depths of God's love for me. And so I'm free. I'm free from needing to prove myself. I'm free from trying to become a better person and to somehow become a good moral person. Instead, I'm free to give and to serve like Jesus gave because I know that his love for me is secure. And I know the gift that he gave me, and so any gift that I can give is small in measure compared to what he gave me. That's the freedom that Jesus invites us into. That's the way to true greatness, as he says. And so my prayer for you is that would be true of you as well.